It's there! Holy moly, this one's going to go big.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. The Sunday Sport. Here's something a little bit weird from the archives. We have a Sunday Sport fruit machine, but the thing to note here is that this is a licensed fruit machine. The Sunday Sport fruit machine by PCP from the £6 era. So that's going to put us back, 93, 94, something like that. This was a licensed fruit machine because the Sunday Sport was a real newspaper, and it hails from the era, I hesitate to use the phrase golden era, but certainly the most well-known era of page 3 girls. Now, page 3 girls, I'm sure most of us who are of a certain age will remember this, but page 3 girls were where certain national UK tabloid newspapers featured young ladies, and let's be honest about this, teenagers, teenage girls, on page 3 of their newspaper, inverted commas newspaper, with their breasts out. And I am talking 16 and 17-year-old girls appearing topless in national newspapers for the titillation of, and anecdotes are not data, but I remember this being a thing when you would go round to certain people's houses back in the 1980s, seemed to be primarily for the titillation of slightly dirty old men. It's gone now. Even The Sun stopped showing topless pictures of young ladies in 2015, but the Sunday Sport, incredibly, and I didn't know this until I started doing my research for this video, the Sunday Sport still actually exists as a newspaper, which I was flabbergasted to find out, albeit with very, very small circulation these days, but it still does the whole topless girl thing. And the Sunday Sport fruit machine here was a somewhat tacky tie-in with the Sunday Sport newspaper, and it is, you can see there up at the top in that yellow star there, the official fruity machine. So we're going to have a look at the machine, we're going to have a play of the machine, but I am just going to slightly cover here this whole page 3 thing, because as I was playing this machine the other day, and it came up over at Desert Island Fruits, the DX that you're looking at here is by Tommy C, and it's from back in 2020. So the DX here is nearly 4 years old as I make this video. But it just cropped up again in some other conversation over at Desert Island Fruits, and sort of reignited my memory of it. So I loaded the layout up, and I was like, oh my God, this is awful. And I'm saying that, I mean, as you say whatever adjective you want, wokey, liberal, tofu-eating snowflake and all the rest of it. But as someone who has a 19-year-old daughter, the thought that in years gone by, we're talking the 1970s, 80s and 90s were really kind of what you might call the heyday of page 3. There were girls 3 years younger than my daughter displaying themselves semi-naked for the amusement of men up and down the country. And I have got an article here, the wiki list here, or the wiki details about it. It's lines like this here. So, in the UK, the Sexual Offences Act 2003 raised the minimum age for topless modelling from 16 to 18. This legal change meant that all topless images of 16 and 17-year-old models that had previously been published on page 3 became potentially illegal content. So just to be clear here, these are inverted commas newspapers that would print topless pictures of 16-year-old teenage girls on page 3. One of the most famous was Samantha Fox, and this is how The Sun announced the arrival of Samantha Fox on the modelling scene to say Sam, 16, quits A-levels for O-levels. Head sees red over his topless pupil, and you can see there the top of the article, sizzling schoolgirl Samantha Fox has quit her A-level studies, blah blah blah. The subtext there is, oh, and by the way, she's going to get her tits out for you. Another one that sprang to mind, and this was quite famous, or relatively famous, was there was a show called Brasseye in the 1990s. It was like a satirical news show by a guy called Chris Morris. There were 6 episodes in the original run, and then he did a special. It was like the Pedogeddon special. It was about the moral hysteria around paedophilia at the time. And The Star, another paper which used to cover, or used to have page 3 girls, sick show goes on regardless. Channel 4 went ahead with a repeat of a Brasseye satire about paedophiles last night. You can read it there. And we've also got that it was a comedy about paedophiles. It really wasn't a comedy about paedophiles. I mean, the irony here is off the charts, by the way. So the Brasseye Pedogeddon special, which was talking about the rank hypocrisy in the mainstream media about how, in many ways, children and young ladies were sexualised. And I'm not even making this up. This was in The Star. That was on one page. And on the opposite page in the same newspaper was a picture of Charlotte Church with the tagline, "She's a big girl now." Child, they're actually using the fucking word child. Child singing sensation Charlotte Church showed just how quickly she's grown up after she turned up at a Hollywood bash looking chest swell. Voice of an Angel star Charlotte, who at the age of 15 is already a showbiz veteran, showed off her new look at the world premiere of action comedy Rush Hour 2, and they're basically saying, oh, hasn't she got big tits? This, it almost seems slightly surreal. It's almost like something that you've made up from an alternate universe, but I promise you that this was all a real thing.
Genetically, paedophiles have more genes in common with crabs than they do with you and me. Now that is scientific fact. There's no real evidence for it, but it is scientific fact.
We even have footage which would be too alarming to show you, of a little boy being interfered with by a penis-shaped sound wave generated by an online paedophile.
You can read the history of it there. Page 3. Some people will try and tell you that it was uncontroversial and no one was bothered about it and it was just a bit of fun. It's always been very controversial. A lot of people have always said, right from when this thing started in the very early 1970s, hey, what folks, do you not think it's a bit fucking weird putting pictures of 16 and 17-year-old girls, including advertising the fact that they're schoolgirls and having them topless in a newspaper? And going on from that, we are going to go on to the Sunday Sport, because the Sunday Sport ditched the whole pretense of being a newspaper. The Sunday Sport was like, it's kind of like, you know what, people are only here for the tits, so let's do away with the whole pretending to be a newspaper thing and just take the piss out of everything as well as have the tits. So they came up with all kinds of famous front pages. Adolf Hitler was a woman, 3-inch dog ate my missus. What World War II bomber found on moon? I remember that. That was actually one of the early ones, the World War II bomber found on moon. You can Prince, I mean, on some level, these are quite funny. Prince Philip haunts my Aldi flip-flops. See there? Bring me the bell end of Paul Daniels. So, in fairness, the Sunday Sport wasn't even pretending, although there's more bell end stuff. They've got a big thing on bell ends. Sex with Mr. Frosty mangled my bell end. So you can two-headed Santa eats his reindeer. You get the idea. It was just, the whole thing was kind of a piss take, and they did the whole topless women thing as well. I was amazed to find that it still exists. So the Sunday Sport currently appears 3 times a week as the Sunday Sport, the Midweek Sport, and the Weekend Sport. So if you want to get yourself a copy of the Sunday Sport, I can't remember the last time I ever saw one in a newsagent's anywhere, but apparently it's still a thing. The point with newsagents, of course, in general, and newspapers, is that they're just not really a thing like they were. It's if you're younger and you weren't sort of kind of around really as a sort of semi-grown up or grown up in the 80s and 90s, you won't remember just what a massive cultural force newspapers were in the United Kingdom. They were, famously, the demographics that they represented were thought to be able to swing entire elections, which culminated in this one here, where the Sun kind of took the credit for essentially swinging a general election by getting behind the Tories and basically doing a hatchet job on Neil Kinnock. Do remember that one there, where you were inviting Britain to turn the lights out if Neil Kinnock won the general election for Labour. So that's the kind of impact and influence that the tabloid newspapers and the newspapers in general in the United Kingdom were thought to have over the political process and many sort of social commentaries and that kind of thing. Not so much now. How many people really buy an actual newspaper here in the year 2024? I mean, for me, whilst I do read, inverted commas, a newspaper, I read them digitally, as do, even my in-laws now who are in their 70s and 80s, they actually read their newspapers digitally on a tablet. So that act of physically picking up a newspaper isn't really a thing anymore. That they are still there, of course, and you do still see people buy newspapers, and some people do still read them. But in their kind of influence, if you will, has been somewhat diminished. But back when PCP made this fruit machine, they were very much a lot more zeitgeisty. And PCP here, normally of the rebuild persuasion, saw fit to license the Sunday Sport and make a fruit machine based on it. I think this was a pretty rare machine, and I can only ever remember seeing one of them. I've had a little look just out of it to see if I could find it. This is Prestwich in Manchester. This is where my nana and granddad on my mum's side used to live. Down that road there, you go down there far enough, you'll find their house. And I have a horrible feeling that I had been here to try and borrow money, because after I had got some money, I went up into Prestwich here, and there was an arcade along here. Now, if you go back as far as possible to August 2008, can you see there is still a Leisure World, and it's gone between, there we are, 2008 it's still there, 2012 it's gone. Now, I'm not entirely convinced that that's where it was, but if you think that I would have been in that arcade probably 94 or 95 thereabouts, it's certainly possible that 14 years later that still was an arcade. It was definitely up along this sort of area here, this bit of the road here. I came up here to this arcade. Like I say, I've been down to see my nana and grandpa. It was the absolute low point of my gambling addiction, covered in the channel in various gambling low ebbs videos, and they will have been dotted around this timeline down to the absolute depths of where I would go to try and borrow money. and I probably got, to my eternal shame, £20 off my nano and grandpa down there with some nonsensical excuse, and found myself up at the arcade along here. Maybe it was there, maybe it was not, but I do remember, because it's quite a small place, by the way. It was I wouldn't say it was dingy. It was your kind of average sort of town style arcade. You did at least need to be, I think, 18 to go in there. And I don't remember it as being particularly grotty or anything, but I do remember, and I remember it was the only time I ever saw one, was they had one of these. They had a Sunday Sport on a £6 jackpot, which I hadn't seen before, so I thought I'll have a go at that. And I also remember winning quite a lot on it. And I can't remember what it was on. It was either on this feature down at the bottom right here. Can you see where you've got the 136? Or the big money there, which is 3 and 6. One way or another, won quite a few quid on it. And to the best of my sort of recollection, that was the one and only time I ever played or indeed saw this machine. It was an arcade in Prestwich, and I'm going to say 94, 95, it'll be thereabouts. It has to be 93 or later, because that was when the £6 jackpot came out, and that's what this machine started on. This was never a £4.80 thing, but I think it was probably 94, 95, maybe even into 96, but I'd say 94, 95. It's not, I'll be honest with you, it's not a great machine. It seems to play surprisingly clunky. It runs on the MPU4 tech, which is it's a fast, smooth tech. Barcrest, very good with the MPU4 tech. BWB get great stuff out of the MPU4 tech. Empire, loads of companies rebuilt into it. Empire did a good job with it. PCP seems to have done a really bad job here, because this machine is very clunky to play. It does have a fairly decent sample package, and it is as tacky as hell, considering its source material, which was part of the reason for all that waffle about page 3 at the start. If you consider that it's essentially an offshoot of this. This is where it comes from, because the fruit machine is kind of pushing, let's be honest about this, it's going heavy on the boobs angle. So we can see here, oh God, old Mel, our high-low buttons are boobs. We've got kinky cash, wobbly wins, sexy spin, all kinds of, let's be honest, sexually themed stuff here. We've got a lady's knickers in her underwear down there, and so on. So we'll have a go of it. One thing that I will say is it sticks very closely to percentage. I'll give it that at least. So it's had a few £100 through it, but what I found is it will even itself off, even with a fairly sort of normal autoplay profile. It will, once it gets a little bit behind it, it'll just try and chuck some money at you. The main way it'll do it is off this repeater down here on the sort of lady matrix down here. £136 repeater, and it can just pick any of those. Or you've got your £3 and £6 repeater if you get the 3 Sunday Sport icons. I have seen both of those when I was kind of half keeping an eye on it in autoplay. I've seen both of those do £20 to £30 for the machine just to even itself off, and that reminds me of what that one did in Prestwich. I think it was something. It was somewhere around £30 that it did off one of those repeaters, which was quite nice. I suspect a chunk of it was in tokens. I had to turn it into cash, but my memory of that visit was unusually for once that I actually won. So let's have a go on it and see how we fare. But like I say, you can't particularly get this machine in a really good mood because it won't let itself get very far behind. And you'll get an idea of the tone of this as soon as we put some money in.
Somebody's giving me one.
There we are. Somebody's given me one, so keep that in mind. That's about the tone that we're going for here. The entry criteria is your standard kind of grid. So can you see? I don't know if you can quite see it on the video though. It does play surprisingly clunky now. I'm trying to think if this is an emulation artifact or if the real machine was like this. I think it was the real machine. Again, this was something that was talked about over at Desert Island Fruits. Oh, there we are.
Sunday sport. Let's do it.
That it does. I think there was somebody else who said they could remember the real machine and it was clunky. So it could well be that this is just how the machine actually played. The other thing is, of course, that MPU4 is one of the most mature techs in the emulator itself. So I would imagine that this is how the real thing actually played. But I cannot tell a lie. I only played this thing for real once, pretty much 30 years ago. So I can't claim to have a comprehensive memory of how that went.
Nudge, nudge.
So we haven't got, I don't think 4 nudges is much there, is it? It's a very, very straightforward, as you can see. Start to finish trail. Oh, now, shall we take one of the named features? Kinky Cash. Go on then.
Kinky Cash.
Oh, I meant to stop that then. That was... Oh, 320, that's going to be tokens, isn't it? That is the worst possible win there. £3.20, which is just going to kick it. Let's just, when we collect that, we'll just see if that's going to be tokens, because £3.20 would be a very annoying token win, wouldn't it?
Sunday sport.
What you'll find is when it really wants to give you even off its percentage and give you a decent win, it'll kind of just land on those Sunday sport icons to give you the £3 and £6 repeater. Or it'll make a very easy job of filling up the matrix here as well, because you can get extra. There it is. All right, you can get extra girls off that as well.
Drop back.
You see there, drop back is your collect prize. I mean, it's as an actual game, it's not terrible. The thing that really hurts it is how really, really clunky it is to play. Some of the samples are quite decent. So we'll go higher there. I'm not fancying that. Oh dear, we've lost that one. So as a machine, it's actually not terrible. We'll just collect this, just see if we've got tokens in there. It is. We've got £3.20 in tokens. That would be annoying, wouldn't it? And a single pound coin at the end of it there. Let's go again, see if we can get another feature. You see there, it's like you almost expect to be able to spin the reels again, but it doesn't. This is the kind of thing, I guess, that... oh dear. If Chris Wren was still with us, he might be able to shine a little bit of light on what's going on a technical level here, but of course that is not. We've got mixed sevens there. Obviously that isn't possible now, so if anyone can say for absolute... Oh, we're going to get an exchange here. Absolutely certain here. If this is how the real thing played, then that would be interesting, but the sort of conclusion over at Desert Island Fruits was that it was. So we'll exchange in again. Rampant reels. See there, we've got our sexy voice going on. Bust out. I don't know what bust out, but we'll try and carry on. Where's that going?
Sunday sport.
Now that's just given us an eye. So we're in kind of Death Alley here. Oh dear, that's our mystery. That's Agony Ant.
3 cracks of the whip. You're going to have a cracking time.
And now this is where... Got a shaman going on there. So this is where it can fill the... I saw this happen on the auto player as well. It can literally just give you this off the bonus and fill them all up. We've got half a chance getting to the end here though, haven't we?
2 exclusive.
Oh no.
Agony
Back to the Agony Ant. Will we survive the Agony Ant?
Drop.
Oh no, that's a collect prize. That's a collect prize.
0898 2 5 3 2 1 4.
Well, £2.40, it's not terrible, I suppose, is it? So you kind of get the idea of the machine. It's kind of a one-off, this one. I cannot think of another fruit machine that is based on... I'm trying to think of any other fruit machine that's based on a newspaper. We have got, say, Viz, which is based on a comic and other kind of times, but I can't think of another fruit machine that is actually based on a newspaper, even though it wasn't really much of a newspaper. And obviously this is also... Oh, that was a whole lot of nudges for Brasseye. Oh, jackpot. I thought that was £3 then, but yeah, of course, the blue 7's are £6. So, yeah, I think this is a unique proposition. I cannot think of another fruit machine that has ever been based on a newspaper. Although I use the term advisedly there when it comes to newspaper. It's a modestly okay game to play, I would say. It's just hurt a little bit by the fact that it's so clunky and so slow. It is. I think you can probably see it there, even just from watching the. See there, it's like it's not. See there, you can. I mean, it gave me nudges there, but even when you don't get nudges, see there, it's like a little bit before it's ready to go for the next spin, which can get a little bit frustrating. Does that give me a feature if I get that? Yes, it does. Of course, I've got. Let's have one more feature, because the machine itself, frankly, is. It's like I said, I've done this one because I think it is a historical curiosity. It's also an unusual one for PCP because PCP were basically a rebuild company. So to have them do a licensed machine under their own name, again, I'm having a hard time thinking of another PCP machine which was actually based on a license. So that makes this one unusual as well. Oh, that's going to be a sport icon. You'll know the board when it's going to give you them because it'll just land. There's one, see there, there's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. It will just land on them when it wants to do it for you. So we've had that 0898. I can't imagine it letting us get... Ooh, that's a shame. One more Sunday Sport and we'd actually be there, wouldn't we? I think we can get a Sunday Sport of Agony Yank, can't we? Is it on there? Oh, that's a collect prize anyway. Oh, Kinky Cash. Okay then. Well, Kinky Cash it'll be. And that's our... Right, let's see if we can avoid... Let's see if we can avoid fucking...
Yes.
2, 4. That's very, very laggy when you press that. It doesn't seem to stop on what you actually want it to. So I guess there's no need to really go on too far with this one. The one that you want to get and the one that you want to play for really, and it will do them. Once it gets a little bit behind, it'll chuck one of these repeaters at you, and they can go pretty big. I'm just trying to think. I think the best that I saw autoplay do was like 36 quid or something like that. So it can go reasonably big when it wants to. It's not the worst machine in the world. Some of the samples are okay, and it seems the thing that interested me about this one was the fact it's a licensed machine from PCP based on a newspaper that was published was all about ridiculously stupid headlines and pictures of topless young ladies, topless teenage girls, really, in some cases, which makes it something of a one-off. Ultimately, I will leave it to you to make up your own mind what you think about that. I think you can probably guess what my opinion of it is. So, there you go. Thank you very much for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll catch up with you next time. But for now it is, goodbye.
Nonsense.